reigning champions host the program with more wins than anyone in the history of the sport all time. Virginia and Johns Hopkins set for the annual Doyle Smith Cup contest. With that, we welcome you into our ACC Network coverage of weekend lacrosse alongside Doug Terry, Jason Patterson here. And Coach, I know this is a day that is very close to your heart.
It really is. It's a meaningful one because Hopkins and Virginia have renewed their series. Certainly Coach Tiffany and Coach Milliman made sure this game got back on the schedule, and it's for a very important person to both programs, Doyle Smith.
These teams always seem to reel in the best in terms of recruiting. It keeps the rivalry hot, and in back-to-back seasons, they gathered up the top recruit in the country.
Well, you start with Joey Epstein, the outstanding attackman from the Landon School in D.C. In 1918, the inside lacrosse #1 recruit and the #1 attackman. His goal percentage very high. As a career, he had 4 goals. He had goals against Carolina last week with 4 goals. His career totals are 75 goals and 43 assists.
The lacrosse world very aware of how Connor Schellenberger, the Charlottesville native, closed up last season. He's picked up right where he left off, Coach.
Well, Connor Schellenberger really exploded on the scene last year, especially with his performance in the championship weekend, being the most outstanding player. He started off the year already as the leading scorer for Virginia with 8 goals and 17 assists, and considered a top candidate for the Tewaaraton Award.
Well, you have attackers like this, you're going to have a test for the keepers today. Here's a freshman filling the shoes of a 2-time national champion.
From the Woodland School in Texas, Matthew Nunes has followed Alex Rode, who had 2 national championships. For a young goalie, he's shown tremendous poise and confidence in his start of the season, 4-0.
In the other cage, a graduate student transferring from Ohio State to Hopkins.
Well, Coach Milliman's talked about his leadership and his poise, and the fact that he is a graduate student gives him experience in the goal. 20 saves last week against North Carolina. He has certainly solidified the position in the goal for Johns Hopkins. Set
for the face-off, the 15th Doyle Smith Cup now underway, and Virginia controlling it immediately on the run. Salah's shot just a little bit off the mark, and a quick start for Virginia, and that is what we saw in that Syracuse contest, Coach. After falling behind the first handful of games, they really established themselves from the get-go in that ACC contest.
Yeah, well, Petey Salah already established himself in the opening face-off. The ACC Defensive Player of the Week coming out of the Syracuse game, has recently set the record for the most face-off wins in Virginia history. And one thing we're seeing for Petey Salah at Virginia is they are keeping him in the game more and more to play offense.
Yeah, very unusual that we've seen him, with those fast break goals along the way, but he's scoring some goals this season outside the fast break game, which is impressive.
Well, he really has, and again, it just makes it more difficult for a defense when that face-off man stays on, and Virginia with an early turnover.
Well, let's expound upon that just a little bit. Petey LaSalle, a luxury in so many ways because of what he brings to the table outside the face-off game, Coach. What is it that has allowed him to excel the way he has in his career at Virginia?
Well, he always came in as an outstanding face-off man, but the face-off is such an important part, and each player that he goes against has a different technique, a different strength, and one of the things that Coach Tiffany talked about is he worked this summer to be a better counter face-off man. And Tyler Dunn is an outstanding face-off man for Hopkins. Had a great start against North Carolina last week and their #1 face-off man. And that was a big part of Hopkins' first half when it was 5-5. The work that Tyler Dunn did at the X.
Epstein, who you saw in our open, is the leader in terms of goals, 14 of them along the way this season. This is a Hopkins team, though, still getting things established under a second-year head coach, and having been not only outscored 61-58 this season, but outshot -9 the split, 211 to 202 thus far on the year.
Well, one unfortunate loss for Hopkins coming into the game. Their outstanding attacker from the Boys Latin School, Brandon Grimes, a wrist injury. Must have occurred during practice this week, so they've had to make an adjustment on offense. So Garrett Degnan is now playing attack, who normally is an offensive midfielder. So a big loss for Hopkins, losing one of their starting 3 attackmen.
In a time where really trying to find the rhythm, establish themselves, this Hopkins team poised to see who will step up in that vacancy.
Will be an interesting matchup all day. Cole Kastner and Joey Epstein, 2 outstanding players.
Wrapping around from the X, but hey, Nunes was ready. He handles that well. I know you've been impressed with the freshman keeper for Virginia. You know, high expectations, and the bar set extremely high when you're following a two-time national champion, but the Woodlands native has embraced it.
Well, he really has, and again, a good first defensive stand for Virginia. They were able to get Hopkins into the 82nd and got the violation, and so therefore Hopkins had to give up the ball, and now a big turnover right there in the clearing game for Hopkins.
Let's see if they can parlay that into the first goal of the contest. Just getting settled in between Johns Hopkins and Virginia, this traditional rivalry. You know, the bands are on the scene. One of the great things you can hear, and that's the fans. Full house back in effect for games like this at Klockner Stadium. That's one of the welcome changes as we head through 2022, Coach.
It really is, and of course, the one thing that some of us older lacrosse players enjoy is seeing the game being played on a grass field. So perfect conditions, great weather, great crowd, and one of the nicest lacrosse venues in the country.
You know, just off the reach of Desimone looking for his stick, and here comes Virginia in quick transition.
Well, Coach Milliman talked about possession time and being able to control the ball on offense, and so right away we can see that one of the things that Virginia does as well as any team in the country is ride.
Well, and it pays dividends. Here's UVA striking first, and it's just what you would expect. There's Schellenberger with his first of the day.
Well, it all starts with the ride and the pressure on the ground ball. It's so important when you're in a scramble situation to get the ball off the ground. Of course, the defense is not set. It gets to Matt Moore, and Connor Schellenberger have such a connection. You can see right there, Matt Moore's head is up. He's looking to the backside. Connor Schellenberger makes a nice move to pull the defense away, and really one-on-one with goalie Josh Kirkson. No chance for the goalie in a situation like that.
9th goal of the season for Schellenberger. Because of his 17 assists, he came in leading the team in points with 25. That total climbs just a bit. You see his work atop the class in the ACC as well. Connor Schellenberger gives Virginia the initial advantage, and the face-off one for UVA once again, as here's LaSala on the move.
You know, the one thing that LaSala does so well is he wins so many face-offs clean going toward his offensive end and puts a lot of pressure on the defense because it becomes an immediate 4-on-3, and sometimes you have to choose between leaving 3 outstanding attackmen and sliding, or do you go ahead and let LaSala come in and shoot?
Schutt's weighing his options on the top left of your screen. Virginia tries to set something up, hoping to double the lead here at around the 11-minute mark, first period. There's Schellenberger. Finds no window in which to pass or shoot just yet.
And he's being played by an outstanding defenseman, and Noah McManus, one of the top defensemen coming out of high school. Great save right there by Kirkson.
Yeah, first time we see Kirkson really turn one away, as Virginia had plenty of momentum for Schutz closing down on him.
Well, of course, with the new rules, the 80-second clock becomes a 60-second clock when the ball hits the goalie or hits the goal, so a shorter time to reorganize your offense.
Schellenberger working from X, loses his footing for a moment. Give it up to a teammate, and Schutz has it once more. He'll take a shot. That'll carry him just off. Beautiful day in Charlottesville. You can probably see it. It is supposed to touch 60 degrees today. You talked about it, Coach, much warmer than it was at the start of the season. This is the kind of weather you want for days like this.
Yeah, those early games for Chile. Another outstanding save by Kirkson. He really held his line very well, matchsticks, and he has had a good start.
And Moore looking for 35 points. That's what separates him from becoming the all-time leading scorer at Virginia. And with a program like this, climbing the ladder is saying something. He's that close, 35 points away from etching his name above all others.
You know, as you look at the Hopkins attack, you also have an outstanding attackman in Connor DeSimone. So, you know, Virginia's long poles, Cates Halstead and Cole Castor will be challenged.
You know, you talked about absences due to injury. One of the things that you have to talk about right away when you look at this Virginia team coming off the national championships, back-to-back with the year pause in between, obviously, is some of the key losses along the way for Virginia just due to graduation.
Well, you're going to, you talk about losing a Jared Connor, a Doc Aiken, Ian Laviano, a defensive midfielder in John Fox, but, you know, both these programs never really lose the ability to compete. So, you know, for Coach Milliman, you know, coming in his, second really full year with the short year in 2020, he's already building the program back to the level that Hopkins people expect.
Here's Epstein, sealed off, being spotted by Matsui, marked by him right away.
Hopkins put in a situation where they had to take a shot late in the shot clock. Will just throw the ball away in the last 2 seconds and set up their ride rather than taking a bad shot and giving Virginia an easier clear. So 2 good defensive stands for Virginia, pushing Hopkins deep into the 82nd clock.
And smothering defense played on Epstein that time. You could see it as he tried to work anywhere close to the cage. You mentioned the loss of Aiken. Obviously, we talked about a freshman keeper as Virginia keeps the attack strong. When you talk about a defensive midfielder, a long stick, securing honors, I mean, you're talking about a group for Virginia to just be able to reload. Speaks to the nature of this program.
Jared Connor was the midfielder of the year, even though he was a long pole. The only other one being C.J. Constable from Duke. So quite an honor for a player who is not considered to be an offensive player. One player that we can talk about a little bit as far as Hopkins and Virginia connection is Evan Zinn, who did come to Virginia through the portal, an outstanding two-way midfielder. And again, Kirkson, really a good start.
And he is the only player Virginia gained through the portal, and you said it, came over from Hopkins. So playing against familiar colors and against his former teammates in this one here today. Speaks to the level of Virginia in recruiting. We talk about what they've done and being able to just kind of fill the gaps and have young faces come in and fill those shoes of those players they lost a year ago, that they only needed to go to the portal for one player, Coach.
Right, they really did, and that's been Coach Tiffany's philosophy, is that he's a believer that you bring a player in that can give you a need maybe through graduation, but he still believes his program is built from within through the returning players and the recruits.
Another thing we heard very clearly from Coach Tiffany as they work right around the crease, finally going to be taken away, and here comes Johns Hopkins. Another thing we heard from him, this is a team that plans to embrace the pursuit of a third championship. This is not a team that is in any way shying away from what's on the table. They believe, go ahead and talk about it, go ahead and embrace it, put you in a position to perhaps seize it, Coach.
Well, they have an opportunity to be only one of 3 teams, Princeton and Johns Hopkins, to win 3 consecutive national championships. Even though there was that year of interruption between 19 and 21, still that would be a tremendous accomplishment. And so Coach Tiffany would like his team to look at it as positive pressure.
And if you're wondering just how deep the rivalry is between these two schools, Virginia's first title, where it all started, who was it against, Coach?
Johns Hopkins in 1972. Yep. But, for many, many years, this was not what you would call a rivalry. Hopkins dominated the series. It started back in 1904.
Virginia's first premier moment in the sport coming against this group, and the pause that existed with Johns Hopkins playing only the Big Ten schedule when things were certainly heated up with COVID, something that fans are glad to see come to a halt here. It is a welcome sight to see these two teams back on the field with one another again.
Well, as I said, it's been such a great series for so many years, so many great players, so many great coaches. Even though they, are not in the same conference, it's one of those very special non-conference games.
Schellenberger's goal standing as the only one until this moment. Virginia gets another. The Who's with Xander Dixon able to find the back of the net. He becomes the second scorer for Virginia. It's 2-0 Who's.
Yeah, one thing Virginia has been able to show this year is balance on offense. And you have a freshman, Griffin Schutz from Trumbull, Connecticut, throwing to Xander Dixon. So for the second time, Virginia is able to get a goal to players that are running in that first midfield.
First 2 belong to the Who's and the Goldsmith Cup contest.
Verizon is going ultra with 5G ultra wideband in many more cities, so you can do more. Ultra wideband level 5G.
Virginia head coach Lars Tiffany challenging this team to embrace the pursuit of a third consecutive title, handed out by the NCAA.
Well, Coach Tiffany came for Brown, played for Coach Darja when he was a student at Brown. Started off by the first year missing the NCAA playoffs and slowly built his team in 2 years to a national champion. And now he is one of the outstanding coaches with 2 national championships and a chance for the 3rd. Peter Milliman, another Ivy League coach who came to Hopkins 2 years ago and has again come in under maybe some difficult circumstances, but is beginning to put his mark on the program. And in my conversation with Coach Milliman, he believes that Hopkins can be a national contender again.
Has to be pleased to see things settle in just a little bit. Can you imagine taking over a program when he did just 2 short years ago, when so much of what's happening off the field has to become the focus that kind of hits the pause button to some degree on being able to really get your system in place on the field?
No, he made no excuses. He said, you know, every coach in the country was dealing with the same circumstances, and he's thinking about trying to get in his staff to get the best players and the best young men to represent Hopkins lacrosse.
Schellenberger tosses it over to Dixon. Those 2 the goal scorers to this point for
Excellent
Virginia.
check right there. You know, Hopkins' defense has always been very good.
Well executed. Think about the toss that put it in Cormier's grasp, and he provides the finish.
Well, so much attention paid to Colin Schellenberger and Matt Moore. You know, sometimes Peyton Cormier gets overlooked, and he is one of the outstanding finishers in the country. 3 goals last week against Syracuse from Canada. You know, his size and his soft hands, he really is able to convert in tight spaces. So again, you see Griffin shots with his 2nd assist. Excellent vision, a good look inside. And just one of those kind of plays where only a good player off ball can make a cut like that. So again, Peyton Cormier gets most of his goals based on assists from his teammates.
And the 3rd year from Ontario, upping his own totals. He's right there at the top of the Virginia stat sheet. As you said, so much attention given to the combo of Schellenberger and Moore. He makes it really a 3-headed monster, this attack for UVA. And they have so many players in that maybe peripheral group and that supporting group, as folks might see it when they look at the sheer numbers, Coach. But they all have stepped up in their given moments, and it takes so much of the pressure off of that duo at the top of the stat sheet to have to do too much.
It really is. And Sean Kerwin, the offensive coordinator, does an excellent job of distribution of the offense. You know, again, it's not as if Connor Schellenberger and Matt Moore need to initiate every possession. They have the confidence to let every player, you know, be an initiator, and so that's really made Virginia a very difficult team to defend.
Speaks to how deep you go on the roster and still find goal scorers already on the year. Everybody a contributor for this Virginia Cavaliers squad. 3-0 UVA as Cormier follows up Dixon and Schellenberger with goals to establish the Virginia lead.
You know, Virginia right now with their 2nd midfield of Peter Garneau, Will Corey, Patrick McIntosh. So, you know, Virginia very comfortable in playing, getting into the depth of their roster.
Johns Hopkins chasing a ground ball as Virginia had set up possession for some time as we get to the late stages of this 1st period. Here comes Johns Hopkins. Just the 5 shots to this point, just the 1 on goal for Johns Hopkins, testing Nunes at least at the 2:50 mark of the 1st period.
And the one thing, you know, about Hopkins in terms of Coach Milliman and talking to him is that he knows that he has an outstanding attack in D. Simone and Joey Epstein, of course, losing Brendan Grimes. But, you know, he believes, again, that his offense is most dangerous when other players like Angeles McDermott, they're the players that he depends on to get goals.
Well, and Virginia will bring the fans to life with this takeaway as Epstein only had it for an instant. And going the distance. Providing the finish is Kessner, who makes it 4-0 UVA.
You talk about end-to-end with a defenseman making a takeaway check. Cole Kessner from California was an outstanding basketball player when he came to Virginia. Makes a big check on Epstein at in the defensive end and carries the ball all the way in. And we've seen the history of Coach Tiffany's teams that he wants his poles to stay involved. And again, it was a situation where Hopkins had to make a decision whether to slide or not slide, and he came in and pretty much took the shot uncontested. You know, goalies will tell you the toughest shot to stop is one with the defenseman with the long pole.
2nd year's initial goal of this season, and 19 different players having experienced a moment like that for Virginia already, and the season's still very young. Ground ball looked like it was going to be scooped up fairly easily by Cormier. But it's still up for grabs in front of the Virginia bench. You called it timeout being asked for and granted.
You know, Coach Tiffany used that timeout to keep the possession.
Well, you look at the past between these two. We talked about it. You mentioned how far it dates back. We discussed Virginia's first championship coming head-to-head against Johns Hopkins. And in recent years, Coach, the contest, they have really brought the fans, the energy, and as this sport has grown, so has this rivalry.
Well, it really has, and you know, we talked about it early in the history of Hopkins Virginia lacrosse. Virginia won only 3 games between 1904 and 1969. They had the breakthrough seasons with 2 national championships, one that was shared in 1970, the last one that was actually a shared championship with the Naval Academy, and then Virginia's win in 1972. But in terms of the series and kind of how both teams became more competitive, it was when Dom Starsia became the head coach in 1993, and Virginia was able to go ahead and win 19 games during his tenure. But it has always been one of the most important games in terms of fan appeal. You know, sometimes, you know, with conferences now, maybe the games take a little bit of a different meaning, but it's still a game that both programs, and I can speak to, you know, as a Virginia alum and also as many of the Hopkins alumni know, this was a game that they always look forward to playing in and then seeing continued. So
splitting the last 2 speaks to the competitive nature of it, and here is the gentleman who touched both of these programs in immeasurable ways, and that's the reason we celebrate the life, the legacy of Doyle Smith in this 15th annual Doyle Smith Cup game. We're going to talk a lot about his background, his connection to both these programs at the half, but Coach, it's difficult to put into words what he has meant not only to these 2 programs, but to the sport of lacrosse.
Well, there's no one who's maybe more of a contribution to things off the field than Doyle Smith and what he has done, and his time with Hopkins and the great gentleman and great coach Bob Scott, and then coming to Virginia and serving with 4 coaches, Buddy Beardmore, Glenn Thiel, Jim Ace Adams, and Dom Starsia. You know, he has been someone that has really, in some ways, gained credibility to the art of statistics.
He is the only non-player coach to be in the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. You said it. You used the word codify. You said he codified what it means to gather up a statistical analysis of the sport, and that speaks volumes.
Well, for Doyle, it was all about fairness, accuracy, and also consistency in statistics keeping. He made sure that every game was done equally, whether it was regardless of who the home team was, and so he insisted, if not demanded, that statistics be kept accurately in every game, and now it is.
An indicator of the relationship that you share personally with him. You were heavily involved in that acceptance speech once he was given that Hall of Fame.
I was honored to
honor.
read it. Unfortunately, at that point, Doyle was dealing with some health issues, and you know, you only get very few moments in life to really be honored by someone that special. So it was a great moment, and probably the most nervous I've ever been, you know, giving a speech. But you know, so many lives have been touched by Doyle Smith.
We are happy to honor him, keep his legacy alive with games like the one you're watching today. Virginia, all 4 goals. Johns Hopkins trying to make something happen in the final half minute of the open period to avoid being shut out in the first 15. Goals from Schellenberger, Dixon, Cormier, and Kastner for Virginia to this point.
Yeah, great shot right there. Just, you know, sometimes you can beat the goalie and not the goal. Shot off the pipe coming from Dagnon. Again, he's playing attack because of the injury to Brendan Grimes, and you know, even though it's only it's 4 goals of Virginia, Josh Kirkson has had an outstanding first start of the quarter, already with 4 saves.
Virginia with 11 shots, 8 of them on goal, really having tested the grad student who transferred in from Ohio State. And with that, the first period comes to a close. How about that first quarter, Doug?
Well, outstanding defense by Virginia. The first 5 minutes of the game, probably both teams excited, a little bit nervous. It was, you know, some turnovers back and forth, and Virginia was able to take advantage of Pete LaSalle at the X, get the possessions, and get the 4 goals in the first quarter.
Again, Schucks with a couple of assists in that quartet. Schellenberger, Dixon, Cormier, and Kastner building a 4-0 lead for the Hoos after 1.
Do you think any of us will look back in our lives and regret the things we didn't buy? Or the places we didn't go?
This is why you want Farmers Claim Forgiveness. Your home premium won't go up just because of this.
Wow, that's something.
You get a whole lot of something with Farmers Policy Perks. Get a quote today.
We are farmers.
Set for the second period in Charlottesville. Another fast start for UVA. And one of the reasons they have continued to keep the pressure applied. Out of those 12 shots, 8 of them on goal to just a single shot on goal thus far for Johns Hopkins. You made the comment as we were in the break, Doug, most of this been played on one end of the field right now.
It really has, and the times that Hopkins has had possessions, they've had 2 80-second violations, and right now face-offs are 6-0 in favor of Virginia, and of course that is going to make it very difficult, you know, for any team to be able to sustain an offense when you can never start by winning a face-off.
The trend continues, every single one of those belonging to UVA. Another in, we'll look at it from Schutz, who has been an impact player already today with a couple of assists to his credit. Looked for a goal there, but was just a bit wide on the delivery. Schutz with 2 assists. Moore has the 1 assist, and remember, Moore chasing a little history. We'll remind you from time to time, he's just 35 points away from becoming the all-time leading scorer at UVA.
You know, Jack Simmons is a player who was not much of an offensive part of the last year, and this year has become, you know, on the first midfield, had a big game against Towson with 4 goals. And so, again, one of the things that Virginia has shown is the ability to have multiple scores.
I think the 13th
Big
Virginia
save
look
right there by
and this
Kirkson.
time Cormier takes a glance at it.
Really impressed the way that this Kirkson has just been able, again, one of the things about goalies is staying calm, and Josh Kirkson has stayed calm, and obviously his experience, he's really reading the shooters well, and that save on Cormier, point blank.
He's notched 4 of them as a result. Let's see if Johns Hopkins can test Nunes here. Nunes, who has notched 1 save, but again, there's only been the 1 shot on goal to this point for the Blue Jays.
You always can tell who Coach feels is you know, the #1 midfielder by who draws the poll. And so for Hopkins right now, it's Jake Vandelis is the one drawing the poll from Mitch Whalen.
Just working around to the back, and now it comes up to Koch, and this is going to be beyond the inline.
Another graduate student, Jack Keogh, in that first midfield. A nice mix of Hopkins of young players and graduate students. So you know, Coach Millen did have the advantage of having some experience when he came to Hopkins.
Plenty to work with, as you said, as the pieces come together. Now that sail's just a bit high. So Hopkins creating some opportunities for themselves now. The shot total up to 7. But nothing of impact to this point.
Yeah, well, the game of lacrosse is a game of runs, and so, you know, for Hopkins, you know, for them to be able to, you know, get that first goal and get a run, it's gonna take sustained offense and winning some faceoffs.
Out top, just out of the reach, and now a ground ball chance, and this ground ball is going to be won by Virginia.
Yeah, again, Cole Castor with his length, 6'7". You know, very unusual for a defenseman to have that much height, but because of his basketball background, also has, you know, excellent feet, and so he's, you know, created 2 turnovers. You know, coming up to the midfield, one where he was able to score, and the other one where he was able to create a turnover. And so, if you're Hopkins, it has to be frustrating because they had some good offensive flow in that possession.
And there is Zen out top. Remember, Zen, the lone transfer out of the portal for Virginia on the entire roster, and he transferred from Johns Hopkins. And Virginia works it around until finally getting it at the face of the goal where Will Corey was waiting.
Yeah, 2 players right from Charlottesville, you know, Connor Schellenberger from St. Anne's Belfield and Will Corey from the Episcopal School, you know, grew up playing lacrosse together. But, you know, you talk about Connor Schellenberger's unselfish play and his vision. You know, he had a good look with an opportunity to take a shot, but instead he made the extra pass and made it pretty much one-on-one with Will Corey and Kirkson. So, part of why Schellenberger is such an outstanding player is that, he sees the field so well, he plays with his head up, and he's willing to make the next pass to get his team a goal.
Well, 5 on the year alongside 1 assist for Will Corey. And that number 5 in operation once again, gives Virginia a 5-0 lead. It won't stay that way very long as the Hoos now build it to 6-0 Virginia with a goal from Petey LaSala right off the faceoff.
Well, he wins the faceoff, and instead of maybe heading to the box and getting an offensive player on, as often happens, he stays on and he scores a goal off a cut. So instead of just kind of carrying and shooting, he stays in the play and he gets an assisted goal right there. You can see a nice scoop coming off the wing from Grayson Saladay, one of the co-captains.
Just what we talked about earlier from LaSala with a head of steam. He saw Corey score that 5th, decided he wants to stay right there even on the stat sheet as well.
And Virginia now, they will use Gabriel Braun who is their second faceoff man, came out of St. Mary's with some outstanding credentials. So depth at the faceoff X is really crucial. So many games have sometimes 25 and 30 faceoffs.
And regardless of who they put out there, every face-off to this point having been won by Virginia. Parker brought that down for UVA as they attempt to set something up with 11 and change remaining in the opening half. Virginia perfect in the face-off department and with a split of 10-2 in terms of shots that have been on goal in this contest. Speaking to the dominance of UVA in this first half, here's a from-distance look that's going to sell well wide. You hear the oohs and ahs of the fans. And, it's so long we went without having the hum that you experienced today right there at Klockner. And we pointed it out earlier, but it just continues to come to the mind that it's great to have these who've supported this Virginia program, winners of back-to-back national championships. They're here, and it completes the full circle run of the sport.
Yeah, good. Hopkins recognizing that Virginia was in their 10-man ride, and sometimes the best way to beat the 10-man ride, instead of trying to beat it level, midline to restraining lines, to throw over, and that's exactly what they have. And so you've got a 75-yard shot to the goal, and Hopkins obviously practiced that. They had 2 attackmen to make sure it was backed up as they shot, and so they gain a possession. Again, a very smart, smart play right there by
Hopkins with Bauer wrapping around the backside. Epstein only had it for an instant. Epstein to this point with a couple of shots, nothing to this juncture to show for it. As you can see, Virginia shutting out Hopkins at the moment. It'll stay that way. Another nice job by Matthew Nunes.
Yeah, Matthew Nunes, just nice and calm in the goal. Maybe a tough angle for the shooter. Was able to see a shot come in high to high.
We're gonna surrender that backward. And Nunes now, as you can see, having worked his way in the saves department up a little closer to his counterpart all of a sudden, which speaks to the pressure Johns Hopkins has applied of late.
Yeah, Virginia going into their invert set, they like to take the short sticks behind, try to play what they call a little man, big man with a short stick, trying to, in many cases, to try to pick off between Schellenberger and Corey, trying to pick off the pole.
Person watching Schellenberger on the potential wraparound.
Yeah, just not making the connection with Joey Chismar. Both teams have had some turnovers. Virginia's been able to overcome those and get some goals, and unfortunately for Hopkins, they've not been able to turn Virginia's turnovers into scoring opportunities.
And Chismar, a player, you mentioned his name there, that you've been incredibly impressed with among those that game is improving for Virginia.
Well, he's a high school attackman out of the St. Paul School in Baltimore. Came on his own, was not offered a scholarship or a place on the team, and earned his way as now in the top defensive midfield group. So again, there's those kind of players out there. They don't all have to be preseason hyped All-Americans to be able to play at this level.
Dermott, it eventually works far side. And
Hopkins has had some outstanding looks. They've had some really good shots. They've moved the ball well and created some good looks on Matthew Nunes. Unfortunately for Hopkins, a lot of those shots are just not on cage.
Yeah, you've seen the adjustment in this second period for sure. Trying to get to the doorstep, but it was not to be as You saw the latest of the looks for Keogh there, who tried to sneak one in. Johns Hopkins staying with it. A little closer in terms of overall shots. You said it, though. They would like to increase that on cage number. This may do it. In fact, it will. It's going to be the first goal of the day. Jella's able to get it in there.
Well, Jacob Analyst gave the classic face sides, completely left his defender behind. And again, sometimes when you step out to a shooter, if you play the stick and not the body, that's what's going to happen. And he just was able to go ahead and clear his hands. But again, give credit to Casey McDermott for setting him up. But you can see the move right there, and he's able to convert and give Hopkins their first goal.
Well, you saw the barrage coming, able to run the shots total to 13, able to get 3 or 4 on cage in succession there, and as a result, Angela's picking up what for him is number 6 on the season. What for his team is that breakthrough goal after Virginia started the contest on a 6-0 run.
And Hopkins with their first face-off win. So, again, if you're going to get back in the game, that's how you have to do it.
All seems to group together, does it not? A contest of momentum, a sport in which, as you said, runs are the key, and no surprise, no accident, that face-off win for the first time comes right after the initial goal as Hopkins finally breaks through.
If you look at players like McDermott and Angeles, they are, top-flight players and certainly capable. And so it looks like, again, Hopkins has the firepower and the ability to score goals. I saw that last week against Carolina.
They'll try to score another quick one here.
Yeah, they had 18 against Towson. So, they except for the Carolina game, every one of their games they've scored in double figures, including a big win over Jacksonville, which turned out to be an important win maybe down the road, because Jacksonville has had 2 big wins against top teams, and when they beat Duke and Denver. So,
yeah, it's a team that certainly wowed some folks around the country. You said it, the Carolina contest skews the numbers just a little bit.
Well, unfortunately for Hopkins, they ran into Chris Gray. I think again, many people consider him, along with Schellenberger and Pat Cavanaugh from Notre Dame, as the 3 top candidates for the Tewaaraton Trophy, and Gray gets 7.
Absolutely. And as a result, 61-58 was the split coming in. 211-202 in terms of shots, as Hopkins has been behind in both those categories, goals and shots, to the tough schedule to get things rolling this year. And how much does it affect this team, Coach, that you went through that season where Big Ten only action was allowed? I mean, we looked at some of the numbers, even in terms of Epstein, who had that stellar start to his career, the numbers down just a bit. You do have to remember that this is a team that was limited in its schedule and its opportunities in the COVID portion of that schedule.
Well, to Hopkins' credit, they came in as the number 6 seed in that tournament and got to the finals, losing eventually to Maryland, who, of course, a year later got to the national finals. But give Coach Milliman credit. He took his team from the last seeded place in that tournament, one of the few teams in the history of that conference and in the country to go from a 6 seed to play in a championship conference game.
And now the schedule expanded from those Big Ten limitations, giving them a chance to really gauge where they are in the second year under his leadership.
Well, not only were they able to schedule Virginia, but they were also able to get back, 2 of their biggest rivals, right down the road between Loyola and Towson. So, their non-conference schedule is the kind of competitive one that you want in preparation for conference play. We go back to the other end. Matt Moore, with time and room, and Kirkson, has done a really good job not only of stopping the ball, but he's also controlled the ball around his crease and given his team possessions.
5 saves now as a result of it. Weighing options. Wrapped from the back. And there it is, testing Nudes again. He's equal to the challenge. And look at the physical nature of this sequence as they battle it out for possession.
Yeah, give Grayson Saladay, credit for running it out. The ball goes out of bounds. It's closest to the sideline, and he was able to get Virginia a possession.
Little foot race for you alongside everything else we've seen. Johns Hopkins now on the board, but Virginia still up 5.
Do you think any of us will look back in our lives and regret the things we didn't buy? Or the places we didn't go?
Verizon is going ultra with 5G ultra wideband in many more cities so you can do more. Mindy, with up to 10 times faster speeds, she can download a movie in minutes or a song in seconds.
Yep.
Okay, now let's work off-site. Public Wi-Fi? No thanks. 5G ultra wideband is faster and safer and so powerful that it's not just for phones. Hello 5G home and business internet. It's time to go ultra with Verizon, America's most reliable 5G network, so you can do more.
Connor Schellenberger had tallied at least 5 points in his last 8 games, dating back to the first-round contest with Bryant in last year's NCAA tournament. He extends the run of 22 out of 23 in his career now, that he has at least 1 assist because he has that alongside a goal in this contest already.
Well, Connor Schellenberger is the player that makes Virginia's offense go more than anyone because he's able to not only score, but he's also an outstanding distributor. And that's what makes him such an unselfish and really great player, because he's got vision and he's also an excellent shooter.
Remains atop the stat sheet as a result, 18 assists on the season. And again, you're just a handful of games into things at this point. He is already putting up such eye-popping numbers in that department.
If you look at the stats, Jason, you would think that Virginia would be ahead by maybe more goals, having won all of 8 of the 9 faceoffs. But the combination of the goaltending and they have really settled down in the 6-on-6 and made Virginia have to work. And just as we talk about Connor Schellenberger, he's just able to power through. As we saw some of those goals similar in the Final Four of the tournament, he just gets leverage coming around the goal, is able to get his shoulders turned. And, Hopkins had to make a decision, and they were not able to get to him in time on the slide. You can see that pretty much not much help for Owen McManus, and that's a tough matchup one-on-one. But, you can see he just is able just to power through, clear his hands, get above goal line, extend it, and finish.
Here's the Charlottesville native on cue. Heard a little bit of what you were saying there, Coach. It's just as we talk about Schellenberger, doubles up his goal total on the day. And as you can see, for a time in a small sample size, he's already made sure more than once he found pay dirt in moments like this. It's now 7-1. Virginia reestablishes the 6-goal advantage.
And if you're, when you talk about statistics, shots are only 20-16. I think if you're offensive coordinator for Hopkins, John Grant Jr., you're probably talking about shot placement. Of those 16 shots for Hopkins, only 4 on cage. That's really the difference right there. Is even with the face-off disparity, it's really been Hopkins' inability to put the ball between the pipes that has been the difference. Saves are 3 for Matthew Nunes and 5 for Kirkson. But again, shooting is not just speed; it's also accuracy.
A great point, because as you saw, only a +5 advantage for Virginia in overall shots. It's just the placement as they hold that 12-4 advantage in shots that have been on cage.
Josh Kirkson has certainly done his job to keep his team in a situation. And another turnover in the riding game. Virginia takes great pride, and they spent a lot of time working in the riding game. And one of those situations where you get a save, you get a possession, but you're not able to get a clear and get the ball back to your offense.
Another disruption on Zulik that time that allowed Virginia to re-secure possession.
Virginia in that ride wants to pin you on a sideline, don't really give you a place to go. And if you throw the ball in the middle of the field, they'll bring Cole Kastner with his length and size and kind of patrol the middle of the field. So, the clearing game is one of those things, much like special teams in football. You have to be proficient in the clearing game in order to beat a team like Virginia.
Bread and butter for this team, the way they excel in the ride game. Best you're going to see, and Virginia will try and now parlay that into another goal. Here's Schellenberger. From X, plenty of options as Virginia works it all the way back out top to Zen.
Yeah, good team defense by Hopkins right there. Again, 3 passes and able to recover.
Moore looking for some open space.
But he has a short stick, so expect him to go.
And Moore will, in the end, feed Cormier, who has another goal to his credit. It makes it 8-1 Virginia.
You know, because of the switch with Matt Moore getting a short stick, you know, the Hopkins defense has to react to the matchup, and of course, the one thing that defenses have to do when they slide is they have to come back to the crease, and Matt Moore able to see over the top, has Peyton Cormier wide open on the backside. And again, there's plenty of time and room. You can see the amount of space and time that he has to shoot.
Cormier led UVA in goals, 45, was in the top 3 in points, 43 in 2021. He pads the total a bit here, as he has another of the multi-goal games, joining Schellenberger in that category for UVA here in the first half.
An adjustment at the X for Coach Milliman. He's gone ahead and decided to play the long stick, bringing in Blake Rogers. You know, not much success, and so a lot of teams will try to use the pole, if nothing else, to try to create ground balls, maybe get more wing play involved, and so you have a situation again where Virginia's able to win, you know, their 10th faceoff.
A little back and forth between Parker, Schutz, and Simmons, and it's Simmons who comes down the alley here.
Again, Virginia trying to get that switch behind between the short stick and the long stick. And once again, Matt Moore able to get the switch and is able to go get Hunter Juronsky in a one-on-one.
Juronsky challenges. Moore ends up dumping it off to Dixon. A nifty little delivery there, but Dixon's shot runs wide.
And Hopkins was able to do a good job in getting back to the switch with the pole.
Here's Schellenberger. Wraps around, then twists until he eventually tosses back to Cormier. Those two, the multi-goal scorers for Virginia on the day.
Good double right there.
The help provided.
Excellent save.
How about the force with which that was delivered by Simmons. Stays with Virginia, and not to be denied. Dixon wraps around and lays it home.
Well, you know, for a goalie, it's just, you know, it's got to be frustrating. You make a big save, you're able to go ahead and get the ball in your crease, get ready to make an outlet pass, and then your pass gets intercepted literally on top of the crease. Your defense has all left you to set up for the clear, and you can see Xander Dixon just picks the ball off, you know, within, you know, a yard of the crease, and no way that the defense is going to be able to recover because they've already taken off to their spots for the clear. So, you know, unfortunate for Josh Kirkson, who's, again, really had a nice first half, and just one of those times where the attackman makes an excellent play.
20 points in 2021 for Dixon. 18 games in which he performed, and the Connecticut native builds Virginia's lead to 9-1. He now completes a trio of players, he, Cormier, and Schellenberger, who have had more than one moment in this contest, and timeout being called for with 41 seconds to play in the half.
So Virginia will be able to play the shooting clock all the way down to 0, or however they want to take the shot, because there's still 74 seconds left on the shot clock and 41 left in the half.
Well, this is a start to a new era at Johns Hopkins. We talked about what some of the challenges have been. This schedule, among those challenges, Coach, they're not shying away from playing the top teams in the country.
And that's what Coach Milliman talked to me about. He said, you know, if we're going to be a successful team and we're going to compete to have our name called on Selection Sunday, we have got to play both an outstanding conference schedule, but we also need to play the best teams in a non-conference schedule. And certainly he has done that for his team. He's obviously challenged them, but he also knows if you want to come to Hopkins and play the best across, this is the kind of schedule that will attract recruits. So credit to him for coming in and saying, you know, we need to play the best teams we can, week in and week out, and they certainly are. And they've held up well coming in at 3-2. And like I said, their win against Jacksonville is going to carry some weight as long as Jacksonville continues to play as well as they are in the Southern Conference.
We talked off the top about how no program in history has won more games than this program. That win over Loyola, that was the moment they picked up the 1,000th victory in program history. You look at the story of this sport and John Hopkins' fingerprints all over it.
Well, 44 total national championships dating back to their first lacrosse season ever in 1893. They had championships in like different divisions, 6 in what was the old ILA, 29 in the US ILA before national championship games were played, and 9 NCAA championships. So, the history speaks for itself. They are, in the opinion of most people, the standard bearer and have set the bar for every other lacrosse program with the success of the history and the number of great players and great coaches that have come through the Hopkins program. So any win over Hopkins is meaningful.
Dates back to 1883. This is the 135th season of Johns Hopkins men's lacrosse. And that all-time record, if you're wondering about it, the 1,000 wins against just 357 losses and 15 draws along the way. And here's an answer out of the pause with 17 seconds remaining. Talk about answering the timeout call. Virginia will get to double digits in the opening half thanks to the way they handle this moment.
Well, as often happens coming out of timeouts, teams will sometimes come in to play a zone, trying to maybe slow the offensive down, take away some of the dives. And so, Virginia obviously expecting the zone, put Connor Schellenberger in a position to shoot. And so Virginia gets the early look and scores their 10th goal of the half with 17 seconds still to play.
First half hat trick for Schellenberger as he has led the way for UVA in this 15th annual Doyle Smith Cup game. And you want to stick around at the half. We're about 14 seconds away from it. We're going to take a look back at the life and legacy of Doyle Smith and why this game bears his name. Just going to be a treat so we get to reflect upon one of the great gentlemen in this game. Johns Hopkins tried for a late goal. It was not to be, and Virginia's lead will be 10-1 at the intermission. Entertaining first half, Virginia as advertised, coming off back-to-back titles, Coach.
And it comes down to the face-off and the work that Peter Sally and Gabriel Braun did, and the shooting accuracy of Virginia offense in terms of the number of shots, 26 to 17. The difference is shots on goal.
You talked about the +9 advantage in shots. Virginia 16 on goal to 5 for Johns Hopkins. And for the Hoos, they have a trio of multi-goal scorers in the first half. Schellenberger, Cormier, Dixon, and a hat trick already in effect for the UVA leader.
We're coming for you, Lucky.
This St. Patrick's Day, me clover charms turn milk green.
Where'd he go? We must have made a wrong turn.
Turn your milk green with me special Lucky charm.
Enough that it's a ranked battle. It's enough that it's the defending champs in the winningest program all time, Virginia and John Hopkins. That speaks volumes. But you factor in that it is the 15th Doyle Smith Cup contest. Well, it just elevates the visibility of this game and certainly the desire to come out on top in a game like this. He was such a special part of this sport in so many ways, Doug.
Well, both coaches talked about the incentive and how important it is to play for a trophy. You don't get a chance to play for many in the game of lacrosse, and this is one of the games where there's a trophy at stake. So it's the 15th game, and Virginia leads the series 8-6. It was established in 2006. With the support of Tom Calder, the former AD at Hopkins, Rich Warner, a member of Virginia's 72 national championship team, and we got together and felt this was an important game for both programs and important to honor the legacy and life of Doyle Smith. And so the Doyle Smith Cup and the Doyle Smith game was created and begun in 2006. And it's been an exciting series, as you can see, a very competitive one.
You talked about what he meant to the sport in scoring and beyond, but what did he mean to these two programs particularly?
Well, he worked under the great gentleman and coach Bob Scott at Hopkins as a graduate and undergraduate from 1962 through 1968. Came to Charlottesville to get his PhD in 1969 and became so involved with lacrosse and also working in the sports information office at the University of Virginia. He never actually was able to get that degree finished, but I'm sure he would say that was his choice, and he was really the architect, and he established the criteria for lacrosse statistics. Up until that time, there really wasn't, a guidebook for lacrosse statistics. What was a save and what was a ground ball and what was an assist, and I remember one line in his speech, he was asked, how come he knew so much about lacrosse statistics, and his response was, because I wrote them. And you can see from the picture right there, he's being honored by Craig Littlepage and Dirk Castra. And, credit to both schools, Mr. Littlepage, the AD at Virginia, Tom Calder at Hopkins, and both coaches, Petromala and Sarger, totally endorsed the idea of having this game be played in Doyle's honor. So, someone who, as the only non-player, non-coach in the history of the sport to be inducted, there are people who are considered to be both architects and pioneers of the game, and that's who Doyle Smith was. And it's nice today that his legacy is still remembered.
That last snapshot when the scholarship that bears his name was announced, one of the many honors that have rightfully been afforded Edward Doyle Smith, who we honor today with the 15th annual Doyle Smith Cup. And Virginia leads this high-profile contest 10-1 over Johns Hopkins at the intermission.
USAA is made for the St. Pat's. For Mac, who can Sergeant Moore. USAA.
With up to 10 times safer, you can do more.
6 shots for UVA, and 16 of those having been on goal. Translates into a 9-goal advantage for the Cavaliers at the break. And you look back, you see a number of players who made their mark in that first half. Dixon and Cormier with multiple goals, and Schellenberger with the hat trick here, Coach. It was what Virginia hoped it would be that first half.
Well, you talk about Virginia and balance. Schellenberger with 3 goals, but they're distributed among a number of players. And the Doyle Smith statistics don't lie in terms of the dominance of Virginia, certainly at the X. Doyle always said that ground balls were the most important statistic in the game. Virginia having an advantage by 10 of 21-11. A number of those, of course, resulting from the face-off wins. But I think the game has really been determined by the accuracy of shooting. Hopkins has had 17 shots, and unfortunately, because they've only put 5 on the Caves, they really haven't been able to put pressure on the freshman goalie Matthew Nunes. And Josh Kirkson has been, outstanding, but he's just not been able to go ahead and make enough saves to keep Virginia's offense from scoring 10. And of course, Connor Schellenberger scored in just about every way that you can score. He scored off a dodge, he scored, off a broken play, and he's also scored from the outside, from about 12 to 15 yards. And he had a nice assist to Will Corey on the inside. So he again has, been the player that we've come to expect with his distribution between goals and assists.
Schellenberger with the hat trick. You saw the great work of Petey LaSala, who's padding his numbers as UVA's all-time leader in face-off wins. Adds up to a 10-1 Virginia advantage. Closing in on the second half in the Doyle Smith Cup contest.
You're not just another policyholder to us. We remember your...
For seconds.
Second half action coming between Virginia and Johns Hopkins, who's in command. And this has been the area, one of the strength areas, as we expected coming in. Virginia having won 11 of the 13 faceoffs to this point, but a scramble for it. One of the more competitive of the faceoffs we've seen today. And Johns Hopkins looking for a lift as we enter the third. Let's talk adjustments just a little bit, Coach. One of the things that Johns Hopkins is looking for, a bit of an emergence from their duo. Epstein and DeSimone both held very quiet in that first half.
Well, when you talk about the experience of the offensive end, you talk about Connor DeSimone, a graduate student, 7 goals, 9 assists, and Joey Epstein, the senior, 14 goals, 4 assists. That has been, at the center of their offense, the 2 leading scorers, and Virginia so far has won those one-on-one matchups between Cole Kastner and Cade Salstead. And so Hopkins is going to probably need to look to their midfielders to get some goals, and they get one right away from Jack Keogh.
And how about that? Just was about to say it's been Keogh that kind of, along with Angeles, have led the way, had their names called. It maybe doesn't surprise us as much that he has the first goal of the second half. He finally is able to break through. Keogh had 3 prior shots and a couple of the decent looks for Johns Hopkins in that first half. And there he is with the second goal of the day.
You know, the halftime is always when coaches get a chance to settle their teams down and talk about adjustments. And, I don't expect that Hopkins will come out and not play as hard as they can. I'm sure Coach Milliman has challenged his team after the first half, and so they came out and get an early goal. But again, I expect Hopkins to maybe be more midfield-oriented on offense. And again, 2 face-off wins right in a row. That's really important for Hopkins, and unfortunately, they get the draw but are not able to win the ground ball, and so Virginia's able to gain the possession.
Yeah, if you were talking adjustments they wanted to make, those were there. But Cormier, he continues what has been a strong day as he now joins Schellenberger in the hat trick department. Look at Virginia up 11-2. Cormier continuing to impress.
Well, for a typical Virginia goal, it starts with the ball on the ground, winning the ground ball, swarming, a player being able to pick it up. Mitch Whalen's able to go ahead and secure just a little quick shovel pass to Matt Moore, and the defense is unsettled. And there's just too many opportunities for Virginia that, Hopkins has not been able to really get set in their defense, and when they have played settled defense, they've done very well, but not able to turn that first goal into a second opportunity.
And those normally at the top of the stat sheet for Virginia, right there being as advertised in this one. Think about the trio of goals for the combo of Cormier and Schellenberger. Here's Rogers.
And he has had, he's taken 1 face off, and if Hopkins can't win the draws clean, then it's going to be wing play that's going to give them a chance.
And Rogers, we should point out, who had that just a moment ago, Herndon, Virginia native. He's out of the Hill School. Yes. He worked his way into the midst of the conversation here in the third.
Well, the game is nationalized. The rosters are no longer maybe the Long Island, Baltimore that they were maybe 15 or 20 years ago. Virginia's defense, for instance, has Cole Casper from California, Cade Salstead from Texas, and Quentin Matsui from Minnesota. You probably wouldn't have seen that, 10 or 15 years ago. Most of the players would have been from the more traditional lacrosse areas.
Speaks to the growth of the sport. This obviously one of the fastest growing sports in existence, and with good reason. These two programs, certainly a lot of credit for the way the sport has grown in recent decades, and certainly in the last several years. The exposure on days like today that television has provided. There's so many reasons, but this sport on fire right now, Coach.
Well, I think for lacrosse fans, the more games that are televised, particularly between top flight programs, the better.
There's a right up on the edge look for Schutz, and
he's got 2 assists today. And again, his size is a real challenge for any short stick midfielder if he is able to get the short stick.
Look at the way that Schellenberger was tested there. It's a little consequence in the end, even though McManus is really giving him a hard time, and they surround Schellenberger and Cormier, both having outstanding days in the scoring department.
Well, the one thing about Canadian lacrosse players who come in, from the box is their hands are so quick, and they are able to catch balls and in places around their body that may not be easy to handle. But again, Schellenberger with his eyes up sees Cormier, and again it's just a quick underhand sweep shot. And for a goalie, there's just really no time to be able to get your feet set and react, because the ball is coming from a different release point. So that's the way Cormier gets most of his goals. They come off assists rather than individual play.
And no, these numbers are not miscues. 19th assist of the season for Schellenberger, 16th goal of the season for Cormier. What a start for those two to 2022. And what a duo they've been for Virginia. 12-2, the Virginia advantage now back to double digits. Johns Hopkins trying to change that right away, but a pestering defense. I'll go back to that sequence just a moment, Coach. It looked like Schellenberger was neutralized. He was immobilized, and yet still found a way to get it to Cormier for the finish.
Well, 2 things that that worked on that play. One, Schellenberger able to handle the pressure from McManus, winning a tough ground ball, and Peyton Cormier putting himself in a place where Connor Schellenberger could find him. That's the chemistry that you create in practice. All 3 of these players were on the same attack, and last year in championship weekend, so they know each other well, and they look for each other.
Non-break. And this is going to be
Will Corey with his second goal of the game.
Another Virginia multi-goal scorer. This time around, it's Will Corey. You said it, Coach. Everybody a participant for UVA as they continue to extend this lead in the third quarter.
And Will Corey is one of the players, and you talked about, Coach Tiffany saying a player has emerged in the on the Virginia offense. Certainly Will Corey with the second goal. And, he has worked his way in a situation where, as Coach Tiffany said, we can't not play him. He's just worked so hard. He's been such an improvement.
Corey, along with, as we said, Cormier, who now has the 4, Schellenberger with 3. Dixon has scored today. Kastner involved. LaSala, you saw that goal as a part of the halftime package that he put together. And as we talk Cormier again, end up surrendering possession, will Virginia, as the ground ball is picked up by Johns Hopkins.
Tyler Dunn, makes the right plays, they're able to sweep the ball to his pole, and it's not able to go ahead, but then Hopkins is able to turn the Virginia turnover into a goal right there. A nice look, and again, because Hopkins, of course, having to play shorthanded with that Brendan Grimes, Garrett Degnan playing that left-handed shooter's wing converts him about 12 yards.
Yeah, Zolik with a head of steam on the way up the field. And Degnan with the finish as Hopkins has a third goal. Watch the transition work for Johns Hopkins after winning the ground ball.
And then Garrett Degnan is their leading midfield scorer, coming in with 8 goals. So it would certainly make sense that Coach Milliman and Coach Grant would make him the third attackman to replace Grimes.
Good work done by Jarodsky to pick that up. Kind of becomes the catalyst for that third goal. And here's another face-off victory for Johns Hopkins. Those beginning to mount just a little bit here. Remember, it was all Virginia in that department, and now the split is a little closer. Just a +3 advantage for UVA all of a sudden in that department.
Well, Hopkins has, made a switch at the X. Logan Callahan, a freshman, going up against Peter LaSalle, and gets a clean win.
Anytime you get a clean win against LaSalle, you've done something. And in the split now, Virginia just a handful more won, which is remarkable with as much of a difference as there was in that category for the entire first half. It's at 11-8 now.
It's the shooting percentage, Hopkins at 7 out of 20, so less than 50% even on the cage.
Only 7 total reaching that designation. And here comes Virginia.
And Connor Cinnamone got the look that he wanted to get. He was able to, beat his man, clear his hands, and Matthew Nunes was able to stand tall and make the save.
Nunes running his total. 5 in this contest thus far. Slowed by Schutz.
Little chop on the way out from Jack Keogh.
The ground ball picked up near the crease this time.
Very impressed with Rogers on the ground.
Rogers unable to hang on, and this is still up for grabs. Moore try to stick at it. That won't work out, and it's all the way back at midfield before it can be corralled.
And if you're a defense, it's so much, so much about your legs. You fight for all those ground balls. You have to work hard, and then you're not able to get the possession, not able to get the ball cleared to your attack, and then you have to turn around and go back and play defense.
Well, you thought there might be a look there. Instead, it's dumped off to Schellenberger.
What a great save right there.
Boy, that looked like that was going to be another of those Schellenberger to Cormier quick goals, and you said it turned away.
Well, one thing we have not seen today, Jay, we haven't seen any man-up opportunities for either team. Both physical teams playing hard, particularly when the ball's on the ground, and to the officials are letting them play. And right there, once again, Virginia, their 10-man ride. Well, the man is realizing it was an open goal. They back up the goal, and now they're trying to get a quick restart.
Yeah, just a reset here at the 8-minute mark. That's a great point you make there, Coach. We have seen these teams play very physical, but cleanly to the point that no advantage situations have been in effect. No man-up environments in this one today.
Credit the officials for, keeping the game at a high level as far as the contact. Nothing, no issues of safety. Another save by Matthew. 2 great saves right there by Nunes.
Well, and Nunes was well out in front. He was at the top of the crease, and both times still had enough time to react. Johns Hopkins trying to keep the foot on the accelerator, though. Looking to get it back to single digits, the deficit. Nunes wraps around behind. Ground ball going to be picked up just off X back there, and we got a player a little bit shaken up there.
Well, I think it was off the shot. Looks like Danny Parker. Is it? No, that's Jack Peel took a shot.
Empire State native. Nice round of applause as he works his way off. Peel quickly up, which is a good sign.
And we'll put Jack Peel down in the book for a save.
Yeah, a little painful one
yes,
there.
Exactly.
Don't even get the statistical credit.
Right. Like they say, that'll leave a mark.
And the reset for Johns Hopkins now. Coming off a valiant sequence for Nunes a moment ago. Freshman still playing a very nice cage today. Johns Hopkins, all the lanes closed off. Boy, great work done by Sawstead there.
But you can see that Hopkins is more committed to the initiation coming from the midfield. Normally you have your top 2 attackmen being the facilitators, but in this case they feel like attacking from the shorts are the best way to get to the goal.
Yeah, it was McDermott there. We saw the goal come just a little bit ago from Keogh. Virginia's advantage holds steady, though, at 10.
Verizon is going ultra with 5G ultra wideband in many more cities. Mindy, with up to 10 times faster speeds.
Perks. Well, it was announced in January that my broadcast... Well, it was announced in January that my broadcast partner is headed to the NILCA Hall of Fame. That induction taking place in New York on March 12th. He'll be going in with Tom Duquette, a teammate, 2 of the 10, a part of the 2022 inductee class, and a well-deserved honor. Congratulations are in order, and I know it means a lot to you, this sport that you've given your life to, Doug, for them to give a tip of the cap back your direction for all the investments over the years.
Well, thank you, Jason. And, I get to go in with a teammate and very close friend. Tommy Duquette was an All-American. I could be best summed up as one of his caddies. It's great to be joining, a group of coaches who are some of the very best in high school lacrosse. And I credit the people from the NILCA who have created an opportunity for high school coaches to be honored. And so I feel very fortunate to be in the 2021 class, the 3rd class of coaches to be inducted. So thank you very much. And, like somebody said, if you do something long enough, eventually you might get it right.
And again, that ceremony being held here for 2022, and March 12th is the date in New York, and what a thrill that will be, I know. 31 seasons, you folks I know are aware of it, but 31 seasons at St. Anne's, also share that connection with Tommy Duquette in terms of St. Anne's, and 407 wins, 7 state titles along the way. It was quite a career, Coach, and we're certainly grateful to have you on our broadcast team, and we're looking forward to, as excited for you as anybody, that honor's coming your way.
Well, I appreciate that, and as I've always been told, the wins belong to the players and the losses belong to the head coach. So it's exciting that I could represent St. Anne's Battlefield at that event.
Well, and that being said, now you're in that analyst seat, so you don't lose any sleep, regardless of what happens at the end of the day. A completely different world these days. Virginia keeping the pressure applied as we're back to action here, 5.5-minute mark. For those of you who maybe have found us a little later, UVA building a 4-0 lead after the opening period. Who's led at 10-1 at the break and have continued to hold Johns Hopkins at arm's length. It's been a day in which Cormier has 4 goals. A hat trick for Schellenberger already, and then a number of other key contributors and scores, including Dixon, a multi-goal performance, and Corey, who's received that honor. And Virginia just looking to add further, and they will. And there's more with a celebration moment. Remember, he's chasing the all-time lead in terms of scoring at Virginia. He entered today 35 points away from that, and he's able to break through, adds his name to the group, having contributed for Virginia in scoring today.
You know, when I talked to Matt Moore this week, he said the one big change in his game is that he's been more of an off-ball player. You know, he came in as a freshman of the ACC and as a midfielder, you know, converted to attack. And he said, you know, he'd normally been a perimeter player, but playing with Connor Schellenberger and the offense of Virginia runs, you know, he has become much more active inside, and that's a perfect example of the chemistry that Connor Schellenberger and Matt Moore has. He scores a goal, you know, off the crease. And again, both of them then add to their point total. So I think now Matt Moore has picked up 4 more points in his pursuit of being the all-time leading scorer in Virginia lacrosse history.
It'll come as no surprise to you. He among those named to the T. Warden Award watch list, top 10 designation. And that's just the kind of player he has been, what you saw a snapshot of right there. Dipping under 5 to go in this third period. Virginia now having posted 34 shots, and 21 of them have been on target to the tune of 14 goals. And again, added corrections on my end to the Tewaaraton Award watch list, and the highly regarded, soon to be, one would expect, all-time leader in Virginia history in scoring with the latest of his moments.
And, you know, the 2 conferences that have, you know, players that are at the top of that Tewaaraton list between the Big Ten and the ACC, you know, they are full of outstanding players. We have looks like we have either a push or a crease violation.
Yeah, major contact right at the face of the goal, and everything pauses at 4:20.
Yeah, just a collision, looked like a 3-man collision. You know, one of those when an attackman goes tight to the goal line extended, that's one place you're going to get contact, and sometimes it's a player from the same teams on the slide, and so, you know, you don't like to see a player down, particularly when the trainers are working around the knee. And that's Kate Salstad, the outstanding defenseman from Texas.
In a game that Virginia holds this 14-3 advantage, everybody taking a deep breath all of a sudden at Klockner.
You know, quick story about Case Alstead. He was an outstanding high school football player at Highland Park and scored the winning touchdown in the state championship game at Jerry Jones Stadium, and his quarterback was Jerry Jones' grandson. So he had plenty of opportunities and offers to not only to play, you know, Division I football as an outstanding receiver, and chose lacrosse.
And that came in to this season, preseason All-Conference, preseason All-American, and why he was selected as one of the team captains on this squad, as he's going to be helped to his feet here.
And he has been the defenseman since last year, who was the designated, #1 defender, and played, for instance, last year in the championship game against Jared Bernhardt, held him to 1 goal and 2 assists. So he would be a big loss for any amount of time for Virginia as their #1.
And it looked like, Doug, more than anything, a number of the Virginia players got tangled up right there on the doorstep that last time.
Well, you know, when the attackman comes in tight like that, you know, as I said, you're gonna get those slides from the crease, and there's situations where a lot of times, you know, the defender gets hit by a teammate who's coming across to help on defense. That's what happened. He was in the situation where he was exposed to contact, you know, and then got tangled up, you know, on that corner.
Well, and this is the last thing that UVA wanted to see, with the way things had been trending
and
today.
He missed the 2020 season to a leg injury. You know, he didn't come back, and so, you know, he missed, you know, those 6 games that Virginia played before the season was ended on March 12th. So, you know, hopefully for Virginia and for the young man that it's nothing serious.
And you hear the reaction of the fan base as he finally makes his way over toward that Virginia bench.
You know, this is where your depth and your recruiting comes in. You know, you lose potentially your #1 defender, and you need to go ahead and be able to substitute for him.
And we talked about how Virginia has handled the losses of those who graduated, those who moved on, many of them who have taken their impact to the next level. And you said it, the fact that they've been able to fill those gaps with new pieces of the roster and can do so at a moment's notice like this, it speaks to the level that this program has reached. Looking again for a 3rd straight national championship, Virginia, trying to join none other than this group, Johns Hopkins and Princeton as the only two schools having accomplished that feat to this point in the history of the sport that has allowed them to be able to continue to plug those holes and have a next man up approach.
Well, you talk about recruiting and getting players in, to your program. George Fulton is a freshman, number 16, who, is the first long pole off the bench from, from Boston, Massachusetts. So, you see, an All-American defenseman as a starter for 3 years and being substituted for by a freshman.
Johns Hopkins.
Now, whether or not, Hopkins will, take advantage of the fact that the matchups will change, that maybe they feel like maybe they can start going ahead and featuring more, because obviously one thing that this might impact would be, say, Connor DeSimone's matchup.
Read my mind, just about to say Johns Hopkins, here they come with a new look, a new setup. Can they parlay that into something positive? Won't happen on this trip down. Here comes Virginia in transition.
Pole to pole, Joey Epstein, with one of his few opportunities for an outside shot. And Virginia not able to convert when you had two poles coming down to the break and a pass that gets past Peyton Cormier.
Yeah, just eluded Cormier. Here comes Hopkins again.
Virginia's also playing without their number one pole at long stick. Is Ben Ware, who suffered an injury in practice, took a shot to the jaw, had to have surgery, and so Mitch Whalen, again, you talk about filling in, and of course, all those players are trying to replace the best defensive midfielder in the country. You think about great defensive midfielders in these two programs. You think about Jared Connor, you think about Mike Timms, and you talk about at Hopkins, you talk about Mark Greenberg and Stevie Mitchell. So, those kind of defensemen are rare because of their height and their ability to get reach.
And so often where things are won or lost, despite all the talk we give to the attack man. Here's a nice job turning away the latest look, and that was Epstein. And remember, Epstein to this point had 6 shots, but has not been one of the goal scorers for Hopkins on the day.
Again, his last 2 looks, the outside shot and the one he was able to go ahead and beat the defender, beat Cole Kastner, were his best two opportunities of the day.
And the combo of he and DeSimone, if you're wondering, they have been held scoreless to this point. And that's with 1 minute and change remaining in the third quarter. Moore trotting into that alley on the far side.
And Hopkins has made a change in the goal. They've gone to Jack Webb. Coach Milliman, again, he talked about the competition that they have at the goalie position, and Josh Kirkson has good as Jay, but just a tough situation to put a goalie in the course of the game, not the opportunity to get warmed up, and so the first shot goes by.
Hasn't mattered to Cormier, who's back there. He has notched a 5th goal and putting the test on the new keeper. Scored those 4 when Curson was in the contest, and now here's his latest and more defeater this time around to Schellenberger. And how about that trio and what they've done today?
Peyton Cormier has 5 goals, and his average time to possession is about 3 seconds. But that's what a finisher does. They wait, no wasted motion, catch and finish.
Those numbers, something else. I mean, 17
great look right there by Joey Epstein.
5 contest, and there it is. Able, you said, to give that look, and here's a hat trick having been quietly put together on the day as Degnan again finds the back of the cage.
And that starts with a face-off win right there. Again, anytime you win that face-off forward, you put the defense immediately into a 4-on-3 situation. And you're also attacking a defense with a freshman defenseman in George Fulton, and so you don't have Case Halstead, and who is actually the quarterback. According to Matthew Nunes, Coach has said, he wants him to concentrate on making saves, and he lets the defense do the communication. And without Case Halstead, now you need, a second defenseman to be the defensive quarterback.
Degnan responsible for the last 3 goals having been scored by Hopkins after the opener from Angelus.
And credit Joey Epstein with the look. He made the right decision on the fast break. He made the extra pass, and Degnan had plenty of time to finish.
Virginia, quick answer, and the goals keep on coming from Cormier.
you know, if you're an offense and you have someone who's that dependable that you can throw the ball to inside, whether he's covered or not, and can finish. You know, Peyton Cormier will be the first one to tell you that
I can help you with tomorrow.
he enjoys the lack of having to move really a lot.
Let's not get mad at me about needing to go to bed.
He's able to go ahead and just create a space for himself.
Just perfect. The finish just as true. Here it is again.
And the flow and the patience, you know, the little stick fake, making the goalie make the first move on the shooter and finishing.
Cormier sneaks his 6th goal of the day by inside the final 10 seconds. And Virginia, with 1 second remaining, able to add another. UVA taking the closing 8 or 10 seconds of the 3rd quarter, parlaying it into a couple of goals.
Well, Gabriel Braun, who is not really with a backup face-off man because, again, he's certainly capable. You know, recognizing, you know, he faces off. Probably they're thinking they're just going to have a face-off to end the quarter, and he wins it forward and is able to score a goal. You can see the excitement from his teammates. A rare opportunity for Gabriel Braun to get a goal.
Just enough time for him to work his way down and find pay dirt to run the Virginia lead to 17-4 over Hopkins as we head to the 4th.
3 days in a row, huh?
I know, right?
Let's do this.
It's like an album drop at home.
Peloton, let's get hyped for the weekend. Shoulders on fire.
It's a secret to my superhuman love strength. It's my focus, my center, my lunch break. Take my breath. Woo! And make it last forever. Do it now or never. Take my breath. Nerds.
Chloe and Rennie went down the sand dunes.
We need a real adventure.
Let's make it real. Compare travel credit cards that help you book adventures beyond your backyard. Or compare cashback cards and turn everyday purchases into your next unforgettable experience. Compare your way there. Find the smartest financial products for you on NerdWallet.
Well, it's a season in which the life of Punch Peterson is being honored. Virginia wearing a helmet sticker, among other things, as a nod to one of the greats all time, Henry Punch Peterson, his life being celebrated here in 2022, Doug.
Well, if you look at the helmet, you see just a little emblem with a punch insignia on the Virginia helmets. Punch Peterson, a 1961 first-team All-American midfielder. And, you know, you talk about the ultimate fan of the game of lacrosse, contributed so much outside the sport when he graduated from Virginia, and also is someone who missed very few Virginia games during his lifetime. It's great that Coach Tiffany and the program has honored, you know, one of their really special, not only players, but personalities. And so it's interesting. I looked it up, and how did Punch get the name? From the old Punch and Judy show, which I'm sure, you know, most people have never seen or probably ever heard of, but that's how he got his nickname. But that's how he was affectionately known as Punch Peterson.
And we talk so much about the history. We've given you the numbers, the legacy of these two programs, these two schools. It comes back to the individuals. So, you know, you have the Doyle Smith Cup game going on today. We talk about the life of Punch Peterson. It's those individuals that have made these two schools what they are, have made this sport special.
Really
here is another moment for who else but Keogh's had quite a day for Hopkins, and he puts the 5th goal in the back of the cage.
Well, he has really been the outstanding player on offense for Hopkins, one because of the fact that he's been able to put his shots, you know, on the cage, which has, you know, been something a little bit that's frustrated Hopkins. And now you see David Roselli in the goal for Virginia. So, you know, both teams have made goalie changes. You know, Jack Webb for Hopkins. And so, again, anytime you can get, you never know. Just like we saw the injury to Kate Salstad, you know, your backup goalie is such an important position.
And if you're wondering how the day ends for Nunes, the freshman, the 4 goals obviously allowed during his time there, but he came up on the doorstep of double-digit saves, picked up 9 along the way, played valiantly in those 45 minutes in the cage.
again, it's not so much the number of shots you see, it's the time. Sometimes it's the timing you make the saves. And so what Nunes was able to do was to pretty much keep Hopkins from getting any runs or opportunities to score goals in bunches. So, maybe a quiet day, but also a very efficient day.
And at point-blank range, able to lay in a goal to go along with the rest. There's the first. We talked about Epstein picking up just a little bit earlier after being quieted earlier. There's the first for DeSimone. He's now involved.
Well, and we talked about how the matchups would change, and if you're Coach Tiffany, you're not going to be satisfied if your defense starts to play with less energy, and you still got some of your top players in on defense. And so the one thing you don't want is you don't want the game to deteriorate. You want these players want to be seen and given the opportunity to be considered for playing time. And so I can just see Coach Tiffany looking over at his defense saying hey, game's not over. You're being out there. You've got 13 minutes to play, so let's produce. And again, for Epstein and DeSimone and Degnan, this is an opportunity for them to get some points and get back in the game.
Yeah, and you're looking at that duo, Epstein, as we said, getting a little more involved in recent moments, and now DeSimone picking up his 8th goal of the season with that look.
You always wonder what coaches say in situations obviously like this, and no coach wants to be in a game where they it's one-sided, but every coach has been there, and I'm sure Coach Milliman will take this experience and make it a teaching moment, get his team ready, because next week they've got to turn around and play another big game against a rival that they've had for many years, and playing the Syracuse Orangemen, which is coming off 2 losses, one to Virginia last week and then to Army during the week. So both these teams will be hungry for a win.
And that contest against Syracuse for Virginia giving a bit of a window and things to come in the ACC. I mean, this is a Virginia team that through perhaps the toughest ACC you've seen was able to close it out with a national championship a year ago, and it's going to be quite a challenge with the usual suspects in the ACC once again, Doug.
Well, both these teams are facing the most important part of their schedule down the road, which is their conference schedule, and then the ACC, which does not have a conference tournament, whereas the Big Ten will go back to having a conference tournament.
At the save for the second of the Virginia keepers today. Fan response telling the story as Hopkins will gather this up.
And a quick timeout.
Well, we'll take the timeout as well with 12:25 to play. Virginia remains in command in the Doyle.
Verizon is going ultra with 5G ultra wideband in many more cities. Mindy, with up to 10 times faster speeds, she can download a movie in minutes or a song in seconds.
Yep.
Verizon is going ultra, so you can do more.
Nerds. Hey, we got to get you geared up, superfan.
Game on. Let's compare here to there. Compare credit cards to find one that earns you cash back on jerseys that fuel the fandom. Compare and find a financial advisor so you can spend less time watching your investments and more time investing in your team.
Hit me. Oh!
Compare your way there. Find the smartest financial products for you on NerdWallet.
Well, the 15th Doyle Smith Cup contest. Virginia working its way a little closer now as we've made our way into the 4th period to claiming what is one of the more memorable days in college lacrosse every time these two teams get together. Been entertaining throughout here, but this is just one step, you said it, a little closer toward conference, which is coming. And these two teams, the expectation's high on both sides. You know what Virginia's trying to do. We've documented, win a 3rd straight title, and the slate out in front of them as challenging as ever as we work our way inside the 12.5-minute mark here. Virginia still commanding advantage at 17-6. Yeah, I have to credit Hopkins with the adjustments made in the second half, though. It found some ways to score in recent moments, Doug.
They've had some very good sequences on offense. Maybe some poor shooting has been, kind of a downfall for them. They've played good defense, but, they've just not been able to sustain an offensive flow, largely because of the face-off wins between Gabriel Braun and Pete LaSala, and Virginia's efficiency on offense, and the way that Virginia's been able to distribute the scoring with Peyton Cormier having 6 goals, mainly inside of the box area, which is the toughest place for a goalie to make a save is 5 to 10 yards.
Speaking of making saves, Rosell, another one there. That's the second real, I guess, marquee save we've seen since he took over for Nunes a bit ago.
And I have a feeling that Coach Tiffany's timeout was one of those message timeouts, to tell tell this group that, you're out there because, we expect you to play at a high level. And so I think that was a little bit of an encouraging speech that he doesn't want to see the level of play drop off.
Well, and because in many ways of what we saw a little bit earlier, you never know when either the injury bug, some of the changes and challenges that are there, keeping your group together, your roster together. You got to have these getting valuable minutes right now, ready to step in as needed. And this is a critical against a ranked opponent stretch of minutes in which you can really hone your skills.
Yeah, and both teams are making some personnel changes. Evans in playing some offense. Paul Rodriguez playing on attack. You've got Patrick McIntosh, who is a highly talented recruit coming in, and according to the coaches is going to see getting more time.
McIntosh, who is out of Palo Alto, he's from the Salisbury School in Connecticut, and you saw him take an underhand look there. That was not to be. It does stay with Virginia on this end.
A number of these players, went to some of the top, prep school programs.
Yes.
For instance, Deerfield Academy, Tabor, Salisbury. These are all schools, particularly in New England, that bring some of the top players, from other high schools to get that extra year against top competition. You look at IMG and where they are. So these are all schools that realize that that they can get recruited by going to one of these top schools.
Made his trip across the country, coast to coast, in order to make that a reality. So Corey, take a look just a moment ago. Already a productive day for Corey. 5 shots taken and a couple of goals to his credit. He's one of the multi-goal scorers in this one.
And Virginia deciding, that the best decision is to, instead of, again, taking a poor shot late in the shot clock and giving a chance to get a save or a turnover, they go ahead and take the last couple seconds and throw it in the corner. And once again, it's that ride that just gives teams so much trouble. And so Hopkins has a chance to get a possession, and then they turn it right back.
You saw Webb, who's in the heart of your screen now. Got a close-up on him, now in goal, taking over for Curson here in the second half. And, of course, Rosell in there for Nunes, as both teams having gone to new keepers here in the second half. 9 and change with which to work. Virginia has really held Hopkins at arm's length all day. Virginia led 4-0 after the first and 10-1 at the intermission. And looking for more as we speak to add to the 17-6 lead, and there is more. Virginia able to get Quinn involved, and in doing so will have an advantage of 18-6 down the stretch in the fourth. Scores on the even 9-minute mark. This Quinn.
And Reagan Quinn is a graduate student who's, in the past has gotten significant minutes. Obviously, he's a player that has been a major part of the program through his time at Virginia. And, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes when you get more playing time early and then maybe you don't get as much, later in your career. And so, I'm sure he's pleased. You can see the reaction from his teammates. But again, you need those students who have been with the program to set the tone for the younger guys. And Gabriel Braun has certainly had a nice second half, giving Pete LaSala a break.
Well, and think about this, Coach. We talked about how many different goal scorers there can be for Virginia. Sometimes it helps to put a number on it. There have now been 20 different players for UVA that have scored goals, and just a handful of games into the season thus far in many ways. But 20-plus goal scorers for Virginia going to be a reality this year with what you're seeing with some of the first-time scorers today.
Yeah, and, if you're a defensive coordinator, for a college team, that's got to be a real challenge because matchups are so critical, and you obviously know that Moore and Schellenberger are going to get the top two, and normally they'll put a poll maybe on Schatz or Dixon, but, that's why Peyton Cormier can get the points he gets. a nice goal for Peter Garno, who had some big goals in the Final Four last year. He comes from great stock and has been an outstanding shooter, and he gets a goal as well. So, I'd like to, give credit to Josh Kirkson, because his stats may not show the effort that he made and the number of outstanding saves that he had today. And as Coach Milliman said, it's a competitive situation in the goal for Hopkins because they have returning players, but I thought his effort was outstanding, and in some cases some bad luck for him, but he showed up well today. And now the faceoffs, we talk about the big disparity, and now it's up to 15-13.
15-13, absolutely. Yeah, you knew the two keepers were going to be tested today, and it's been a real challenge, the role Nunes has been stepping into. He was good with the 9 saves. You had 7 saves for Kirkson when all was said and done for Hopkins today. So on a day when the keepers had their hands full with the talent level of the attackers, both of them having some very nice moments.
Well, the difference was, of course, Josh Kirkson had to face so many more shots consecutively in terms of the number of shots he had to see, in a row, whereas Matthew Nunes saves with 9, were spaced out during the course of the 3 quarters. He never was in a situation where he had to make multiple saves or have a flurry of shots at him. So, he had a calm day certainly for a goalie, but Josh Kirkson stood tall all day.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that 5 of the 6 goals that have been posted by Hopkins coming here in the second half of action, and the fourth quarter having been handled by Rosell in goals. So you're right, Coach. It really is more of a condensed snapshot in terms of the scoring for Hopkins, but Virginia's kept the pressure applied all day long to make it tough on Kirkson and now Webb, who occupies the cage for Hopkins at this juncture.
And good for Rosell, again, getting a full quarter. It's not like a lot of games where you put the second goalie in with only a couple minutes to go. He's going to get a full quarter of work.
Virginia looking for what would be a 20th goal in this game.
Yeah, that'll be back-to-back games with 20 goals, 20 against Syracuse last week.
Just going to go there. 2011 winners against Syracuse. They scored 18 against Towson. This will be the 3rd time for Virginia with 20 as they reached 21 goals against Air Force to open the season in that 21-11 victory over the Falcons.
Yeah, Will Corey got away with one right there. And we still haven't seen any yellow on the field all day. I think maybe the referees are trying to challenge each other to see who will make the first call.
Well, Will Corey ended up on both sides of that in that sequence. You talked about getting away with one initially, and then he's getting up off the turf when the dust clears a moment ago.
Well, that's your payback for throwing behind your back, I guess.
Yeah, it comes. But you said
nice,
still.
Another nice save by Rosell.
Letting him play the extent of it for this day. 5:40 separating a Virginia team up 19-6 from what would be a win in the Doyle Smith Cup, the 15th edition of it. And, we talked about Doyle Smith's life. We talked about these two programs and the history. Probably more than anybody because you were involved in the creation of this game. For folks who weren't with us in the first half, what does a win in this contest mean? Anytime there's a trophy on the line, that's something. But because of what Doyle Smith meant to these two programs, speak for fans who may have found us a little later to what his legacy means to these two schools.
Well, most of these players, don't even know who Doyle Smith was. Understandably, I mean, they're focused on the lacrosse in 2022, and so people like Doyle Smith are more names than they are, people that they have a real connection to. But, I think this game probably has the most meaning for the alumni, not only from the two schools and their supporters, but also for the players who have played against Hopkins. And, even back in, to the late 60s, early 70s, when Doyle Smith was connected, both to Hopkins and Virginia. So I think more than anything, the Doyle Cup represents to the people who knew Doyle and cared so much about him and all the players that he impacted and coaches. It's nice to know that there is a game that remembers someone very special. So, and as I said before, anytime you attach a trophy to a game, for at the end of the game, they'll shake hands and then they'll stand at the midfield line and the trophy will be presented in a nice ceremony. And so for another year, Virginia will be keeping the cup. And I know when Hopkins won it, the years they won it, they were very excited as well.
And Hardware trending towards staying with the Hoos, though Hopkins continues to fight. And another goal pieced together. Here's Jack Hawley, one of the seniors out of the Empire State, receiving congratulations from his teammates.
And true to form, the excellent support from Hopkins. I don't think there's a team that travels that more than Hopkins has in their history and still does. Their band is here, a number of supporters. So, again, I think that speaks to the game that they are willing to drive down from Baltimore and be there to support the Blue Jays.
A couple of seniors on each side in this fourth quarter picking up their first goals of the year. And, yeah, you can hear that pep band in the background with that goal having just been scored by Hawley.
Yeah. I think that's
you said their memories, maybe nightmares from that for you, right?
The band and the goal counter, as much as you talk about theme songs and whatever. I mean, that's part of the Hopkins legacy. The only thing you don't want to be is the goalie standing there at the end of the field when they start counting and they get up to about 15 or 20. Then you just say, please no more, instead of hearing we want more. But it's just a great part of the game. And when you played it at Hopkins, that's the field that so many people feel is kind of the mecca of the sport. Playing at Homewood, such tradition.
Certainly something you remember from your own playing days. That emotion coming through, no doubt about it.
Well,
you talked about the connections between these two schools. We've mentioned what Virginia is trying to do in joining Hopkins as a three-time, 3 consecutive championships. That's rare air. You talked about early on how the first championship Virginia was able to secure. Hopkins right in the middle of that. So in many ways, their paths continue to cross in the premier moments for this sport.
When you talk about, the great coaches in the history of the sport, and Virginia certainly has had their own, but, you go back to Kelso Morrow and you talk about, some people consider to be the godfather of all coaches, and you just have this all legacy of Howdy Myers and Bob Scott and Henry Ciccarone, Don Zimmerman, Tony Seaman, and of course, David Petromalo, who's still active now, the defensive coordinator. So no program has had more historic figures in the game of lacrosse than Hopkins. And, again, sometimes students of the game don't realize just how important Hopkins has been to the sport. I mean, they are the barometer, they are the measuring stick, and in their heyday, no one could beat them.
That's the reason they found themselves the first to 1,000 victories along the way. And here is Cramp, who's able to find an 8th goal for Hopkins. As we close in on the final couple of minutes here, congratulations in order for him. He joins the scoring on the day. For a Hopkins team, again, under a second-year head coach, beginning to get themselves established. They're going to play a brutal schedule this season, but it's incremental steps to get back to where the standard is for the history of this program.
And part of the charge for Coach Milliman is to take his team back home and get them ready for Syracuse. I would expect to see an energetic and focused Hopkins team playing back at home against Syracuse. Again, both those teams are coming off some losses, and to get in the tournament, you need signature wins. So for Hopkins, I think their Jacksonville win is important, but outside of conference, you need to get those wins, and I would imagine the Hopkins-Syracuse game to be extremely important, for the rest of the season to both those teams.
Increasing the tight nature of the face-off numbers after Virginia was very dominant in that category early. 16-14 is the split now. Obviously, things changing personnel-wise along the way here and there, but that's one area where Hopkins has made some hay here in this second half, made some adjustments and improvement in the face-off department, resulted in, as you see, the 8 goals that have been scored off now, 44 shots. Virginia having outshot them by a +4 advantage on the day, and the on-goal differential tightening as well, just a +6 for UVA. As we close in on the final minute here and you kind of reflect upon what we've seen, this trending toward Virginia hanging on to the hardware, winning this special game, the Doyle Smith game, and improving to 5-0 on the season. a day in which Cormier had 6 goals. That comes to the forefront of your mind. A hat trick for Schellenberger again. So many different goal scorers. What are going to be your takeaways from this latest Virginia triumph, Coach?
Well, obviously an impressive win to be 5-0, and we talked about handling the pressure of being the defending national champ. And hell, for Virginia, the real gauntlet of the schedule starts. A Thursday night game going down to Chapel Hill. You can only imagine what that game will mean for those two teams who split in the regular season, with Virginia, upsetting really Carolina in the national semifinals. And then they've got to turn around, and they've got Maryland coming up at Aldie Stadium, which could be 1 versus 2 and a repeat of the national championship game. And you know how Maryland feels when Virginia took away their undefeated season. Notre Dame. So, the meat of the Virginia conference schedule and is coming up, and of course people will be very interested to see that Maryland-Virginia game at Aldie Stadium.
Well, looking that far ahead, you wonder. It was 78-80 that Johns Hopkins won 3 consecutive. Johns Hopkins followed up by Princeton, doing it from 96-98. Can Virginia make 19, 21, and 22 the same type feat? This is another step in that direction as UVA defeats Johns Hopkins, retains possession of the Doyle Smith Cup with a 19-8 victory over their rivals here today.
Well, it really has been a day to celebrate Doyle Smith, and these games will move on to the next opponent, but it will be nice to have these two teams stand and hear the story of Doyle Smith and why there is a Doyle Smith Cup.
Virginia claims it behind 48 shots on the day, 19 goals. So many scorers, none more so than Cormier. Another great day for the combo of Cormier and Schellenberger, Coach. Schellenberger also has a hat trick along Cormier's 6 goals.
And as you look down here, you can see the trophy that was created. It's probably one of the heaviest trophies that you could ever get. So it should be a big trophy for Doyle, and it's a series that we're glad to see that Coach Milliman and Coach Tiffany have gotten the game resumed, and hopefully will continue.
Doyle Smith, whose fingerprints was extensively on both of these programs, who is the only non-player coach ever elected to the Hall of Fame, who's responsible for the way you understand men's lacrosse and how you gauge it statistically. That trophy representing his impact on this game, and this is going to work its way into the hands of Coach Tiffany once more as his team having won back-to-back Smith Cup contest. Coach, your final thoughts on what we saw here today, what this game means to the Hoops?
Well, it's good to see the two teams playing. I'm sure from the Hopkins standpoint, they were hoping to have a more competitive afternoon. But for the game of lacrosse, a perfect day with great weather, and we'll see where these teams go from here.
Well, a beautiful day in Charlottesville turns out to be a banner day for Virginia. That'll do it for us. For Doug Terry, Jason Patterson saying so long from Clockner, where Virginia ends up claiming it 19-8. A reminder, you can watch this game as well as all games on replay from the ACC network. Simply download the ESPN app. Virginia claims the Doyle Smith Cup, 19-8 the final in Charlottesville. Enjoy the